All right, today we're basically jumping in a time machine and heading to medieval India. But here's the twist. We're not going alone. We're going to see it all through the eyes of three totally different visitors from far-off lands. And this is such a cool way to understand a society, right? Because a visitor, well, they notice things that the locals just take for granted.
I mean, really think about that for a second. It's kind of hard, isn't it? The most normal, everyday things in our lives are often the toughest to explain. Why? Because we've never had to. They're just there.
And that, right there, is the whole point of our deep dive today. These travelers' accounts are so incredibly valuable because they were struck by all the unique, the amazing, and even the just plain ordinary things that writers from India might have thought were, well, too boring to even write down. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll meet our three guides. We've got Al-Biruni, the super methodical scholar. Then there's Ibn Battuta, the total adventurer. And finally, Francois Bernier, the sharp-eyed critic. After that, we'll dig into what their stories tell us about people who are often left out of the history books. And, to wrap it all up, we'll ask the big question, what does all of this really mean?
So let's kick things off with our first guide, Al-Biruni. He was born way back in 973 in what's now Uzbekistan. And this guy was a true polymath. I mean, he was an expert in everything, from math to astronomy. He wasn't just a tourist passing through. He was on a serious mission to systematically understand India, not just glance at it.
So you might be wondering, how did he even end up in India? Well, his story has this wild twist. He was actually taken to Ghazni as a hostage. But, this strange turn of events sparked a deep, deep curiosity about India. He completely immersed himself, spending years learning Sanskrit, poring over religious texts, all to prepare for writing his masterpiece, the Kitab al-Hind.
But here's what's so incredible about Al-Biruni. He was unbelievably self-aware. He didn't just look at things. He thought about how he was looking at them. He actually laid out these three huge barriers he knew he had to overcome to even begin to understand the society. I mean, that's some serious intellectual honesty right there. When it came to something as complex as the caste system, he tackled it like the scholar he was, by going straight to the source, using the culture's own texts to explain it. But, and this is key, he didn't just stop there, he also offered a critique. While he described the system, he made a point to say that the whole idea of social pollution, which was central to it, well, in his opinion, that just went against the laws of nature. Now, let's fast forward a few centuries and meet a completely different kind of traveler. I'm talking about Ibn Battuta. This guy from Morocco was the absolute definition of a globetrotter. He wasn't driven by books. He was driven by a burning desire to see new things, to experience the world. For him, knowledge came from the journey itself. This quote is just perfect. It totally captures his whole method. Think about it. How do you explain something as strange as a coconut to people who've never seen one? You compare it to something everyone knows, a human head. It's so vivid, so memorable, and it's a brilliant way to bridge that gap between the known and the unknown. Through his eyes, we get to see these cities that are just buzzing with energy and opportunity. He describes Delhi as this massive, wealthy place. And the markets? Oh, they weren't just for buying and selling. They were the heart of the city, social and cultural hubs packed with dancers, musicians, and singers. He paints this incredible picture of a world that's just electric.
He was also just blown away by the sheer efficiency he saw. Get this, 5 days, that's it. That's how long it took for spy reports to travel from Sindh all the way to the Sultan in Delhi. And this was a journey that would normally take 50 days. 50!
So how on earth was this possible? Through this absolutely mind-boggling postal system. He describes two kinds, but it was the foot post, the dawa, that was shockingly fast. It was like a non-stop relay race. Runners were stationed every third of a mile. One guy would sprint with the mail, carrying a rod with bells to announce he was coming. The next guy would hear the bells, grab the mail, and just take off. This system was even faster than using horses, and they used it for everything. Not just mail, but even for shipping fresh fruit. Okay, so from Ibn Battuta's World of Wonders, we're going to jump forward another 3 centuries to our final traveler, Francois Bernier. He was a French doctor, and let me tell you, he had a very different agenda. He wasn't just observing or exploring, he was constantly comparing. His main goal really was to critique Mughal India by holding it up against his own idealized version of Europe. And his whole argument really boils down to this right here.
For Bernier, the #1 problem with India was that the king owned all the land. He saw this lack of private property as the root cause of everything he considered wrong with the place. Ruined farms, oppressed people, and, in his words, a king ruling over beggars and barbarians.
And Bernier's ideas weren't just some academic thought experiment. They had a massive impact. His writings got super popular back in Europe and helped create this powerful, long-lasting theory of Oriental despotism. Big-name thinkers like Montesquieu used his work to argue that Asian societies were just naturally tyrannical and stuck in the past. This view became the dominant way the West saw the East for centuries, and it even helped lay the groundwork to justify future colonial ambitions. But beyond all the big theories and grand descriptions of cities, these travelers also give us these rare and sometimes heartbreaking glimpses into the lives of people who were often invisible in the official records, especially women and enslaved people. Ibn Battuta's account is pretty raw. He describes a society where slavery was everywhere. People were literally bought and sold in the open market, just like any other product. He even talks about buying people himself to give as gifts to the Sultan. And he points out that female slaves weren't just used for housework. They were also used as spies in the homes of the nobility. It shows you just how structured and deeply embedded the whole system was.
And then there's Bernier, who recorded this just absolutely harrowing eyewitness account of sati, the practice of a widow burning herself on her husband's funeral pyre. His description of this young girl, maybe only 12 years old, it's just gut-wrenching. For European travelers, practices like this became these really powerful symbols of what they saw as the huge, unbridgeable difference between their world and the East.
So, after all that, after journeying with these 3 very different men, what's the big takeaway here? I think it's that we always have to remember that what we're reading is an interpretation. It's never the whole, pure truth. This table just lays it all out so perfectly, doesn't it? You have Al-Biruni, the scholar who saw a complex puzzle to be solved. Then there's Ibn Battuta, the adventurer who saw a land full of wonders to be experienced. And finally, Bernier, the critic, who saw a flawed society to be judged against Europe. Each man's personal background and his reason for being there completely shaped what he chose to see and how he wrote about it. And that's really the heart of it all. These accounts, they aren't perfect mirrors reflecting the past as it truly was. They're more like lenses. And to understand the picture they show us, you have to first understand the lens itself, the biases, the motivations, and the entire worldview of the person who is holding it.
And that kind of brings it all back home to us. When we travel or meet new people, or even just learn about a different way of life, what are our own lenses? What are the biases and assumptions we carry with us? What are our own ways of comparing and judging? That is something really worth thinking about.